All right, brother, what's going on, man? Line time in the works, but I'm glad we're finally able to sit down. You're a busy man.
Yeah, it's been a little crazy.
Is it all good stuff or what? Like, where are you at as far as busyness?
Yeah, well, right now it's really a lot of family. My wife is having a baby. It's going to be our first baby together. We're a blended family.
Nice, congrats.
But
man.
we're actually coming down and having some complications. Nothing too crazy, but enough that it causes that extra stress in the household. So
Yeah.
working on that.
How
And
many kids
also
do you have?
So we have six
Okay.
combined.
Okay.
I have four from my first marriage. She has two. And then we're having one together. And five live with us. My oldest son moved out, wanted to move with his birth mom, and he had the right to choose that, which is always a tough pill to swallow.
No doubt.
But it's one of those things in growing. So that's something that we deal with every day. But the rest, they're at the house, and we're always working on them. So any added stress is always just kind of makes things double hard at the household. But it's all good, right? And then working on all my own stuff, from writing to music now I'm dabbling into, and as well as the acting, just being able to find my creative side as well, because that's really what keeps me happy. And then, and still just trying to do a lot for the veteran community, but not only that, whatever spills outside of that. It tends to be, just men in general, fathers, just the hardworking just guy going out there trying to do their thing,
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, man, you're a bit of a Renaissance man. like Army Ranger, drill sergeant, writer, musician, actor, barber. I think I've covered, father, right? Coach. Like, there's so much that goes into what you're doing. It's insane to me when I look from the outside. Like, I think I do a lot, and then I see you and I'm like, yeah, I don't do that much.
It all comes down to just leading, right? And as well as the willingness to throw myself out there. I don't shy away from failure. I'm the guy that, if I feel like I can do it, I'm going to try. And if I find success, cool. And at the same time, what is success, right? Everyone can kind of determine what they identify as success. For me, it's just being willingness to go out there and attempt it, right? And so I attempt a lot of damn things, man.
Yeah, no doubt. How do you decide? Because I'm sure, you do a lot. I know that. And you're willing to take those risks. But I'm sure there's been ideas that you're like, oh, that'd be cool, but you don't pursue it for one reason or the other. So, how do you determine, okay, this is something worthy of my pursuit with all your children and coaching and businesses and everything else you have going on?
Time is everything. What's going to take what's going to be more beneficial in time, as well as if it pulls me away from the family, that's always a hard decision to make. It has to, there has to be some kind of value. If you're going to pull me from my family, there better be some monetary value that makes sense, right? But for the most part, I have this kind of branding that I try and stick to, and it's really, it has to stay to that as long as it stays in that. So writing. Anything in the writing capacity, I feel comfortable with. I can write in my house, I can write at home, I can write at my office, I can write anytime when I'm flying. So when you say writing, you can break down writing in so many different levels: writing a script, writing a song, writing a poem, writing a book. You know what I mean? And so all those are writing a speech, right? So all that is in this realm that I always like to exist. And then from there, coaching, it makes sense because I'm home right now to coach my kids. And I think that's a big part of what I should be doing anyways. And so I make the time for that. I've walked away from a lot of businesses that took time away from family, and at the same time didn't find fulfillment in, right? There was things that didn't make sense, and it didn't monetarily make sense either, and so I've done a lot of investing back into myself and my mission, and what I'm trying to do is just really being a positive influence for people out there, men, women, children, doesn't matter. But in that sense, if it doesn't align with those morals, values, and belief systems, then I obviously have to take a back seat. And so that's really how I kind of choose what I'm going to go forward with, right? Music. I think music is another medium that's just like writing. It's just like poems, and being able to find a space that is comfortable for me. I'm not a rapper, right? I'm also not the greatest of singers, but where's this equal medium where I can play with and still be able to express, some profound messages that I think will, resonate with a lot of people. Well, that's where I'm going to try and go with it,
Yeah. Do you consider, so you said morals, values, belief systems. I think those are all good things. Is that what you would consider, you used the word branding. Is that what you would consider your brand? Or maybe I'm misinterpreting how you meant that.
No. Yeah, it's tough. I think very similar to what your brand, right? You know, and I say brand, it's really, I know who I am and what I want to represent and what I do represent without trying, right? Like if you're having to go out of your way to make an effort, it's not genuine. I'm not going out of my way to make an effort. It's the same thing, way I raise my kids, and any content I put out from now on has to represent that, and I can't turn around and be embarrassed by it when my kids get old enough to watch it. I didn't start that way. You know, I didn't start that way. I started out just doing entertainment and making funny jokes and all this, and you know, some stuff I'm not too proud of. And so when I started to sit back and think about it, and like, man, this is probably not something, you know, a side of me I would appreciate my kids learning from. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's not the guy, you know. And so I stopped trying to do things for that, for the attention, for the shock value of a conversation. I stopped doing that because I didn't find value in that. Like internally, personally, I was like, it's spikes in following, but it's not longevity in respect. Right, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so in my branding, I said, that doesn't make sense. Boom, push it out. What makes sense to me is being me. If I have to go out of my way to be something I'm not, it's not genuine, it's not real. And I don't want to wake up every day trying to be a character, right? I don't want to wake up every day and be like, let me post on my social media how much I do workouts because that's what people like to see. Like, bullshit, man. I'm a guy who struggles with working out. I'm a guy that doesn't get the workout in every day because I find other things to, but also I'm also the guy that knows I should be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And people can understand, like, there's a truth to me is I struggle with eating tacos or going to the gym. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that because I know who I am. Do I want to get in better shape? Every day I know how important being fit is for the family, for myself, for any altercation potentially. Do I have the stamina right now to defend my family if I need it? I don't know. And that's always an uncomfortable question to try and answer for myself. But like I said, but I'm not the guy that goes around and tells everyone I'm working out every day at 4:30. I'm not Jocko because I'm definitely not waking up at 4:30, bro.
Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, in everything that I'm doing, I'm trying to make sure that my branding stays genuine to who I really am and not the character that people want me to be.
Yeah, I think that's valuable. You know, I got caught up in that a little bit early on as I started the podcast, like trying to figure out what people wanted and how I was supposed to present myself. And the more that I've moved into, you know, I'm aspirational, right? I have things that I want to accomplish like you, but the more that I've stepped just into who I am, what I'm comfortable talking about, what I like to talk about, what brings me fulfillment, not only is it better for me and my family, but I've noticed that more people are attracted to that than my bullshit anyways. I think that's why people are attracted to you because, yeah, even though you don't get up at 4:30, they see themselves in you because you're being real. Jocko is being real. But if you take somebody else who you know they don't get up at 4:30 and they pretend they get up at 4:30, that turns people off.
Yeah, no, exactly. You have to be you, man. And like, I'm never going to be Jocko. That dude is like super cool, motivated, but that's just not me either, right? And even if I tried to be stern and serious, that wouldn't come off genuine because it's not me either, right? And so it's like, you know, back in the day when social media was started, it was these spikes in attention, right? People needed to be extreme and all these crazy things for you to get these followings, for you to get these shares. You had to be something. Whoa, it's so cool. I think that is exhausted now, and people are just looking for real. Like, who is just real, man? Who's not throwing smoke and mirrors just to get me to laugh? Who's the guy that's actually, damn, I could actually have a beer with that guy. I would love to smoke a cigar and have a conversation with that guy. And I think that holds more power. And if it doesn't, you know what? It's not exhausting.
Right.
Yeah, it's not exhausting being me. I wake up and I'm me, dude. And I don't have to worry about anything else. And when you can live like that, it's very comfortable, man.
Do you feel like you've had to, I don't know, redefine yourself or evolve? I mean, I take somebody, for example, you know, you think about, I think about my drill sergeants anyways, and I'm like, man, these are not guys that I want to like hang out with. You know what I mean? And I imagine you stepped into that role pretty well. And then you have these other roles that you play, which don't always align perfectly with what they are. Like, how have you redefined yourself as you've gotten older, as you've matured, as you've thought about new things that you wanted to accomplish, priorities change, et cetera, et cetera?
You know, by the time I became a drill sergeant, actually pushing troops, I've already went through some huge leaps and bounds in growth and really identifying what I want to represent as a drill sergeant, or like as a drill sergeant, right? And that was huge because a lot of the guys around me haven't. A lot of guys were like super pumped. They got their hat and their badge, and you know, now that now they got their license plate. Oh yeah, bro, and it's not what it really should be, right? Like the hat shouldn't define you. And I explain it that way, like, you know, my Ranger tab didn't define me either. What defined me still at that point in my life was being a good dad and a good leader. And when I first got as a drill sergeant, I was just like them, excited to be a drill sergeant. Let me smoke all the privates I can and let me just fuck them up. You know what I mean? And after my first cycle, we had a guy get deployed, and within 30, 40 days, he was killed in Iraq. And that kind of set a precedent in me from then on till the rest of my life, still to this day, is what is the intent of my job? The intent of a drill sergeant, and the intent is so huge in my life, that word and everything I do has to, like, it goes around that. If you put intent in the center and then you circle that and you put all the lines out, like, what's my intent as a father? What's my intent as a businessman? What's my intent as a fucking entertainer? That is like the biggest thing that answers questions for me, right? When I really have to do a deep dive in myself, what's the intent? And as a drill sergeant during OEF, during this time, our full intent is to train them for combat, to get them ready for war, right? To be the best leader possible. And so from that day forward, I gave them my heart, man. I stopped being drill sergeant and I became dad. And this is part of a leadership book I'm working on, is genuinely I cared about every single one of these kids. I wanted to see them find success. I wanted to see them get motivated. I had to identify what motivates each one of them. And that is where it started, where like me, was like, oh man, I'm doing this with these soldiers, giving them everything I possibly can because I care. But that doesn't mean I can't be stern. Right? That doesn't mean I can't teach them, you know, the morals and values and everything that represents as a military personnel and rank structure. But it also doesn't mean I can't just take off the hat and say, hey, soldier, I know you're having a hard time. I've been there. You know what I mean? And do that face-to-face, that when you go to your kid and you go down to their level and talk to them kind of thing. Like, I was willing to do that when most didn't understand why. They were like, what are you doing, drill sergeant? Like, what do you mean? What we're doing here is training men and women for combat. That doesn't mean they have to be callous.
Right.
We have to, you know, there has to be a heart and soul in what we do. I think there's a lot of love in leadership. And that actually made me flip and say, why am I not doing this with my own kids as well? And so, and this is part of the book that I'm working on, is like, you know, I think there's big parallels to being a leader in the family household, as well as, you know, raising men and women for combat. But I kind of knew who I was then. And then as the social media thing popped, I started doing border patrol, started doing all that stuff, and really, I knew my lane and knew what I wanted to represent. But then social media popped, and it was this time frame of about 2 years of trying to understand it, figure it out, as well as please everyone around you.
Yeah.
And that was a kind of a lost time for me. You know, I became a single dad. I'm dealing with business partners and trying to figure out whether I want to continue in this path or not. Did I make the right decision walking away from a federal government job? You know, and so all these things, you know, and I started to realize, like, go back to who you are. You know who you are. You know what you want to represent. You give a shit, right? Like, I just give a shit about people. And so I wanted to make sure that every day is easy. Meaning, like, it's not fabricated, it's not exhausting being me. And so I never changed. I always posted my kids on my social media from day one all the way till now. I'll always post what's real in my life. You'll get your marketing posts once in a while because I got to push a product, because this is how I make my living as well. But at the same time, you're always going to get the most genuine sides of my life, you know. And so people have been through my divorces. People have been there when I was a single dad. People have been there when I met my wife, and now continued in my life now. And I think that's what has been very powerful, and people saying, this guy's not perfect. He goes through shit, and we all go through shit, you know. And so trying to maintain that now, it gets harder, right? I wake up with a lot of messages, and I'm trying to communicate with everyone fairly, you know, that I guess that is worth communicating with, not just like, hey, but like the guys that really ask questions. I dig deep with them. You know, a lot of these people, I give my number. I don't care when it comes to someone really looking for information. Like, you got me. I'm no one different than anyone else. And I want to make sure everyone knows that till the day I die, I'll still be Vince Vargas. and just a guy trying to figure it out to help others as well.
It's powerful, man. It's a really powerful perspective. You know, when you're going back to drill sergeant days and you were talking a little bit about that, I think there's a misconception that somehow taking off the hat, literally and figuratively, and like getting down face to face with a soldier somehow undermines your position of authority or credibility. But I've found the exact opposite. Right. You know, like we had a drill sergeant. So I went through basic training in 1999. I went to Fort Sill, and we had a drill sergeant who, like, I really admired and respected the guy. He was tough as hell, man, and he was hard, like really hard on us. Some more than others, not me, fortunately, because I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. But man, he was a guy that I admired and respected. And I remember he came up after basic training, and he went to shake my hand. I had my glove on, and I went to shake his hand. He's like, "Hey, never shake somebody's hand with your glove on." And so I took my glove off and I shook his hand, and he says, "I just want you to know that I really appreciate you coming through this. I had a great time." And me and a couple of the guys that I was in high school with were with me, and they said, I really appreciate you guys. I respect you guys. You went through this the right way. I know I came down hard on you, but I saw a lot more in you than I saw in other guys." Like the way that he connected with us through the cycle, but then also afterwards, like I'll never forget that drill sergeant. And that's the thing where people think, oh, this undermines your leadership. No, it elevates it. It puts you in a better position when you connect with people personally.
Yeah, you know what it does? It humanizes them, but it also humanizes them. Like, man, wait, this guy is completely normal dude, but he's so like high up there on the respect factor. Like, I aspire to be that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's respect. It's just, it's when you know, I say we all walk in the room with the same level of power base. When I say power base, is like everyone in the room, without opening your mouth, they have some kind of respect for you. They'll look at the way you look. They'll look at the way you dress. They'll just kind of already make a predetermination of you. And then you open your freaking mouth. And then it's up to you to keep that fucking level of respect up here or lose it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, good point.
And as a drill sergeant, I see that. I walk into a room with Ranger this and bells and whistles on my chest. Everyone right away is like, "Oh crap, this dude's scary." Then I open my mouth. It's like, do I maintain that respect? Does it continue, or do they lose respect for me? Am I the guy that lies to them about like, "Oh, the max distance of a 203 is 900 meters"? Like, bro, that's not true, right? Like, but these guys, you know, like once you start losing this little respect here, little respect there, you know, that power base lowers, and then you start putting themselves on the same level as them, and you're like, why am I going to listen to this guy? You know what I mean? I don't even respect the dude. Mm-hmm. And that is where we lose. And that's the same as parents, right? Parents who lie to their kids. I think it's funny because it's like, you don't realize how smart your kids are. They figure it all out, you know, and once they can Google it, they're going to be like, "Oh, dad's full of shit."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know? And so I do the same with my kids. I keep such honest dialogue with them. And obviously it ranges to how old they are and what they can, you know, what I feel they're capable of understanding. But like, you know, my 14, 15, 16-year-olds, you know, my 14 and 17-year-olds, you know, they get the most honest side of reality and life and perspective, you know, sex, boys, but like whatever, reality, because I think I owe it to them to give them the most honest perspective in life, because who else will do that?
Yeah, well, that's the problem. Like if we can't be real and true with our kids, they're going to look for that information somewhere. So, I mean, it should come from us, like truth about, like you said, pornography, sex, drugs, evil in the world. Like everything that you don't want to talk about is the exact shit that you should probably talk about with your kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, it's funny. I was talking to my 17-year-old, and I said, "You ever heard the term ride or die? Like people use it, they throw it in." And she goes, yeah. I was like, "Well, I'm your ride or die dad." Meaning I'm the guy you go to for everything, because I'm the guy who's going to give you the most honest perspective of it all. And in the worst case scenario in your life, when you're embarrassed, you did something so stupid, you're like, I don't know who to turn to. You turn to your ride or die dad, because this dude will have an answer. He's never going to judge you. And well, I might be pissed, but that doesn't change the fact that I love you and I want just the best for you. So I'm the guy. Like I need them to know, like I'm the safety net, you know, with maybe some scolding in that, and maybe a long quiet drive of me just yelling at you saying, "What are you thinking? That's not smart." In the end of the day, it's all rooted from love. Like I am your safety net in everything in life, from relationships to addictions to anything, any kind of failure and success. I'm the biggest high five you're gonna have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's like they need to know that. And I told her, I was like, don't ever think I'm not the guy, because I'm the only guy, right? Like I'm the guy, and mom is the mom, right? Like you have that here. No one else you'll have in your life. You'll have friends and all that, but in the end, we're the ones who've experienced life in so many different levels of it, so profound that like all I have is answers for what I did wrong. You know what I mean?
Right.
Let me give those to you, so maybe you can have
you don't
one
have to
step.
do these.
Yeah.
No, it's a great point. I really admire and when I see you on social media, I think you had posted just the other day about your daughter wrestling, and
Yeah.
I think she had it looked based on the picture and what you were talking about that maybe she lost her match at the tournament or whatever, and I just thought, man, that's a powerful moment. Like the picture is awesome because you're like, she's got her head down, black and white, kind of sets the tone of it, and you're just face to face, eye level to eye level. And I just thought that was so powerful. And I honestly believe that the world would just be a better place if more dads were involved to that degree with their daughters and sons. It would completely transform the landscape of culture and society.
Yeah, it's funny. Like you see even mom in the background with the face of the nerves, but like mom knows this is my time.
Right.
Like this is what dad does. And I grabbed her hand and I got down and said, "It's okay. Losing's okay. Like we're okay with losing. What did we learn? Let's get better. No one's mad." You know what I mean? Like genuinely. Yeah. And she's like, I just get frustrated when losing. Like, yeah, but that's good.
Yeah, you should be frustrated. Like, now what do we do with it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good feeling to have, because now you're like, hopefully that motivates you to do more, practice harder, fine tune those little mistakes. But like in the end of the day, you're safe. I'm here. Like you could always turn and be like, Dad, I'm supporting you. And it's this interesting thing where like I actually love their losses. I just hate them for them, right? Like
it's
I hate
painful,
watching
man.
them go through it. Yeah. But I love it because like good, it's Jocko's good, right? Like
right.
You should face these in life, because you know what? When you're 18, you're going to have a lot of those. When you're 19, 20, when you're 30, when you're 40, you're going to have a lot of these little losses that hurt inside, but you're also going to know that, it'll pass. I can get better. I can work on things. It's the self-accountability thing that we all need, but for some reason, no one wants to allow their kids to have. You know what I mean? Like, no one wants their kids to lose. Why? Lose. It's okay. I'm the backstop. I'll be there to pick you up and push you back on the mat, and we just need more losing, because the building of resiliency is so important that for some reason society has not allowed their kids to have anymore.
I think that's true. I think where it comes from is a position of selfishness, right? And you actually alluded to it, because you said it sucks for me. Like, it's not that you're like these helicopter parents and these parents who aren't willing to expose their kids to loss and failure and ridicule and mockery and everything else. They aren't doing it for their kids. They say they are. Like, oh, I don't want my kids to feel bad. Bullshit. You don't want yourself to feel bad. And so you're sparing yourself and your feelings from allowing your child to have an experience in a controlled environment that will let them respond positively to failure. Because look, when you're out of the picture, when you're done helicoptering because you're not around or because they despise you, they won't know how to deal with hardship and failure, which will inevitably come. You better teach them how to handle that stuff.
Yeah, if you're not the person they go to now for answers, you're never going to be the person they go to for answers.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
If you're not the person they go to hug when they're hurt, they're not going to come to you when they're freaking hug when they're hurt as an adult. They're not.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. Yeah, it's true. I want to go back to what you were talking about with this idea of the power base, because I think that makes a lot of sense. Is that an idea that you just like you stumbled upon? Is that something that you've been deliberate about? Like, how do I establish my own personal power base? Like, tell me more about that.
Yeah, it comes from when I was becoming a drill sergeant, when I became a drill sergeant, when I'm in school becoming a drill sergeant, watching other drill sergeants, and I'd watch them walk into the room. I mean, this started even as a young soldier, and you look at your drill sergeant, you're like already judging each one of them before they've opened their mouth. We do it. We size up everyone, and in that size up, we all determine already what we think of a person. And then they open their mouth and they start to instruct, or they start to teach, or they start to lead. And you're like, you know what? They're not as cool as I thought because of whatever issues, whether they lied, whether you go to do PT and they're not as good at PT, whatever the case is. It's the power base is either it stays up above their head or it slowly starts to dwindle down to a point where you lose respect. And this is really a respect thing. It's really like if you're in a position as a drill sergeant, Are you a good drill sergeant? Do you have respect for others as well? Are you earning that respect as much as you're demanding that respect, right? Do you hold the attention of the room? If I walk into a room as a drill sergeant and I'm overweight, and I use this because it happens all the time, but right away, your power base is diminished because people are like, huh, that's a drill sergeant, right? And same thing as like a cop or an MMA fighter, right? You're like, I don't know if he's going to win. Looks a little soft, you know? But that's because you've already determined in your head and all the preconceived notions of what he looks like and what their job is and the position that they hold. Are they holding it to the standard? I don't know. Doesn't seem like it. You know, and then you could look at other guys and be like, oh, that dude is a badass. And then you wait for him to open his mouth and see if he can maintain that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And that's based off their own arrogance, ego, right? All this stuff spews out of people. They don't realize it, but it does. There's guys on social media that I follow like, man, that guy's a beast. But, you know, you can tell there's a little insecurities there because the way he just spills like insecurities out, you know?
Right.
You know, the angry ranters or whatnot. I'm always like, wow, like that's what you want to put out into the world? That's on you, dude. But I'm sitting back watching him like, that's probably not the guy I want to have a beer with, smoke a cigar with, and actually share any kind of intimate moments with because, you know, that's not what I want to surround myself with.
Right.
But that comes from power base, right? And that's where I've determined it. You know, that's where it came from. I wanted to walk into a room as a drill sergeant, and I wanted people, one, to already have respect for me because of the way I carried myself, the confidence. You could already see all the stuff that I've earned in the military. You know, at the same time, I wanted to be able to hold that and be able to be the person they expected as I walked in. I wanted no change when I opened my mouth. I wanted to maintain that same respect the whole time.
Why was that important for you?
Because as a drill sergeant, someone who is training these men and women for war, you should be held to a higher standard, and you should never lose that, right? Like they knew I was willing to come down to their level and talk to them, and they also knew when the hat was back on or when that moment was done, I go right back to Drill Sergeant Vargas. Don't fuck with the dude. He means shit, right? Like he's the real deal. And because that, I think, carried for them in the future is what they would want to do for themselves. I think it's leading from the front, leading by example, being a very strong role model for an individual, you know, and I think that's huge. That's so important for them to want to aspire to be in the future. And so for me, I just want, and I cared about my job that much. I wanted to maintain that respect factor that was like, this dude is the real deal. Like that was important to me because that's how much effort I put into it as well. Right. You know, I believe in good leadership, and I believe good leadership builds future leaders, you know, and so that's the goal, right? I wanted to make the Army a stronger and better place. And if I was just that small footprint, fine.
I like the idea of honoring the title, honoring the position. I think it's really valuable, whether it's something as significant as, you know, being a drill sergeant, being in the military, or something that you may feel is like insignificant, like cleaning the toilets as a janitor. Like honor what you're doing, right? Honor your role, whatever role you're playing in the moment. And I think it's easy to look at other people and start to identify like their power base and whether what they're doing matches up or not. But I think we ought to use it as an exercise to look at ourselves too, right? It's like, what is my power base? Because some guys will say, you know, they'll point fingers at everybody else, and yet they're never willing to look at themselves. Like they'll say, well, this is just the way I am. People should just like me. Or they won't wear, you know, clothes that represent what it is they're trying to portray. Or, you know, they won't keep themselves clean and tidy, or learn communication skills, or learn how to speak in public. Because they're like, well, this is just the way I am. People should just accept it. It's like, man, improve, get better. Like think about the way that people are viewing you.
That's exactly it. It's get better. It's I think we should be striving for constant growth. There should never be a time I'm complacent with self, right? Because I think there's so much information out there, so many mindsets, so many different things out there. Like, why aren't we looking to research all of them and take a little from each one you like and get rid of the ones you don't like? I feel like if you look at the circle of friends, you know, that I started out with in the beginning of like, I just say high school, you know, some of us grew past that circle. Some of us are still in that circle. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's okay. But me personally, what I want to be for myself, like in the end, like, and you'll, I think you would appreciate this. Like, I started out in probably lower middle class as a family, and I'm trying to move my family. And my mother was poor. Like my mother was like, when I say poor, I'm talking adobe house, picking fruit as a 10-year-old kid just so they can have dinner. Right. You know what I mean? Going to me, what she's developed and created for me and my brothers and sisters, and what I want to create for my kids, and then what I want my kids to create for their kids. The goal is to always find growth. And if you're not growing, I feel like we're not respecting the people before us. I'm not respecting my parents if I'm not striving to be something more, because how hard she worked to get us where we are. And so with that mindset is like, look, I had to join the military to go to college because my parents didn't have the money to send me to college. But my goal is hopefully put my kids in a position where they are all going to college, or at least having the option for college if they wanted. And then their kids hopefully will all strive to hopefully be doctors and lawyers and whatever the case. But we're moving the family tree into this area where like we are a very successful and wealthy family. And wealth doesn't equate to like happiness, but success is like, it's like it hopefully breeds more success, which means like they're going to find themselves in corporate freaking leadership positions. They're going to find themselves in high areas that the Vargases back then would never have ever imagined.
No doubt, sure.
And it's just this being able to self-accountable for your actions and grow. Like, I just want my family to grow. Like, my daughter was like, Dad, you know what? It'd be really cool to be a president. I'm like, a president, right? And I'm like, there's nothing that says you can't.
Yeah,
like, genuinely.
It would be cool.
Genuinely. Yeah. Like, nothing says you can't. Yeah, I can give you a layout of what's the best direction to start going that way. Yeah. You know what I mean? And she's like, really? I'm like, yes, that's how legit it is possible.
Right.
And so it's like, I never would have imagined my daughter saying that. And it was really cool to hear.
Yeah, that is cool. I like that you're talking about not only do you encourage in that instance, but you're like, okay, and here's the route, right? Like my son is my oldest son. He when he was younger, he wanted to be a quote unquote cowboy animal doctor. And so I'm like, oh, nice. Rad, let's do that. Yeah. So we introduced him to the rodeo. I connected him with guys who were in the rodeo. I called up veterinarians in the community and I said, hey, can I just bring my son in to like watch you for an hour? And they're like, oh, we're just doing like tooth extractions on cats. I'm like, actually, I want to see that. So like, so I'd bring my son in there while they'd extract teeth from cats and try to feed him pills. And like, it was awesome, but that's our job. Right? Like, our job is not only to encourage, but then facilitate that growth as well, to teach them the path, to get them on the path itself.
That's it. And that's exactly like, so any of my kids, they say they want to do something, like, cool, let's do it. Here's the path.
Right. Yeah. I like too that you're talking about evolving your circle, because I know a lot of guys who are stuck with their existing circle because maybe they think less of themselves. Maybe they feel some sort of like loyalty. Right. So they're like, well, I just have to be with these guys because they've been my boys, you know, for the last 20 years since we were in middle school, and they never evolve out of these relationships. What's your take on that?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, you know, I think it's hard for everyone because we build these friendships and you know, these loyalties, and we come from a background of like brotherhood, and we stay together, and, you know, never leave a man behind. But in the end, I think the biggest competition I have is with myself, and I have to continue to push myself to be better for the family, right? And so my circle, my legit circle, is my blood family. That's my circle, and they have to grow. And if I'm not making choices to help that circle grow, then my outer circle is not helping me either. Like, I have friends now that kind of push me to do more. I'm like, that's a cool circle to be in. But eventually, I want them to do more too, right? Like we have to, and you know, I've had to step out of several different circles to get to where I'm at now, because if I didn't, I still would have been doing the same thing, and I never would have been genuinely happy. Would it be fun? Oh, of course. It's always fun to be around your boys and having a good old time, but does it accomplish goals that I want personally, like deep in here? Like, is it my goal? No, I had to step out to do my goal, to do what I believe, to do what's good for my family. And it's not the popular, you know, decision to make, and your circles get offended and whatnot. And at the same time, it's, if they didn't want to see you grow, are they really your friend? Right. You know what I mean? Right. So in the end of the day, man, for me, it's like, what is the best decision for me? And, you know, my intent for it is always to improve the family situation. I never feel bad for that decision. Right.
I think that's key, having the right motive, because it doesn't make severing a tie any easier necessarily. It makes it manageable, right? You're like, you think to yourself, okay, well, here's a relationship, whether it's a family member or a friend, that I can't have because I'm going in this direction. I feel like if your motives are pure and you know why you're doing it and you're doing it for the right reasons, then that becomes significantly more manageable. And you don't need to do it like a dick. I'm not saying you need to be an asshole, you know, maybe you gradually evolve or grow out of that relationship, or just dwindles over time. But yeah, I think we do need to spend a lot of time being intentional, to your point earlier about who's in our life and should not be potentially in our life.
And it comes down to like, it's the same thing I said before, is like, just, you know, I invested in myself. And when investing in myself means I had to shut everything else around me to invest in myself, and then so be it. In the end, you know, I feel like if I make it, we all make it, right? Or if you make it, we all make it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like I'll reach back
the people that want to.
Right, exactly.
Right, because there's people who, and I think guys do this a lot. Like, we think that we need to save everybody. Yeah. And what we fail to recognize is that guy might not want to be saved. Like, so focus on the people who want to come on the path with you, who want to walk the same path with you, who want to be around you, who want to lead their own tribes. The guy who doesn't want to be saved, I mean, it sucks. Like, you see him flailing around in the water and getting into things he shouldn't be getting into and running in circles he shouldn't be running in. You're like, that sucks. I can save that guy. Only if he wants to be saved, and only to the degree that he wants to be saved. You
know, I believe in the end, you know, you can guide him. I say this all the time, like I can lead a veteran to counseling, but will he take it? Right? It's the same thing, you know. In the end, dude, everyone has to make their own decisions. Everyone has to put their own pants on, you know. And I can offer the opportunity for people, and there's some people that will try and take it, but you'll know right away if anyone really wants it or not. You know what I mean? And I brought guys into my circle like, hey, I want to get into acting. Okay, let's do it. And then a couple months later, like, they completely back out. I'm like, you weren't ready, and that's cool.
And it's cool. It's okay.
You know what I mean? And that's okay. You know, but like, if I'm gonna use my efforts, you better be ready. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How did you get into acting? Is that something you've always wanted to pursue, or is that a development after the service, or what?
It's a small part of me that I've always wanted. I did theater in college when I was playing baseball. Easy grades, right? I needed to stay eligible. I wasn't good at school, so I did the whole theater thing for a couple of years, and really liked it. Even in middle school, I was stage crew. I was doing all the stage lighting and sound. So I've been around it. I think growing up in LA, you kind of tend to be around it in some aspect. Did an audition once. I'm dyslexic, and I really didn't have a grasp of reading when I was 17, 18, 19 at all. Like, it was really, really bad. And it was more like I was so embarrassed of it, I just did it less. And so since I did it less, I was really bad. And then the anxiety came behind it, because all the people that used to make fun of me as a kid, and then now doing it in a room with people with a camera, man, I
professionals, and she's.
Oh, dude, yeah. And so I completely broke down. I was like, genuinely anxiety and sweating, and I was like, never mind. And I walked out, right? And that was such a terrifying moment for me that I never wanted to feel that again. So I ignored it. You know, I ignored the whole thing about Hollywood and acting and theater. And I felt like I really felt I could do it, but that was just too much for me to try and grow in that moment. So ignored it, went on, played college baseball, went to the military, got out, you know, got into the, you know, prison system, then went into the border patrol, you know, the whole gamut of just running my life and throwing everything, like, don't worry about Hollywood, it's done, you know. And then by chance, my buddies threw me on some YouTube videos with them, right? And I started to get
Matt and those guys, Article 15.
Matt, JT, Article 15, right? Yeah. So the whole Article 15 kind of kicked off, and I started doing these YouTubes, and I'm like, this is actually pretty cool, you know. And I feel really, and you know, I was getting confidence, like, man, you're real natural on film, and looks good. And I'm like, cool, man. But I already had a background in understanding this, and so I felt completely comfortable. So then we went and did Range 15. And when we did Range 15, you know, just the story of that is really cool. A bunch of veterans crowdfunded a movie, and, you know, we produced a movie and a documentary. And just that experience alone, it was really inspiring me to, why don't I step out this comfort zone and try again? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I've been reading a lot better, and, you know, I feel a lot more confident with where I'm at in reading. And I told myself I'm going to give it a real good shot. And I went and did some improv comedy with a buddy of mine named Jamie Keeler, and we did Dads in Parks, right? And so it's this improv comedy at a park. And while I was there filming my second iteration of those, I was in LA, and my buddy said, hey, their Mayans are still doing auditions. They're looking for a couple more guys. And I was like, well, fuck it, man, let's do it, you know? Yeah, and so I put my name in the hat for it, sent an email and pictures and everything I've done, right? I put Dads in Parks together with some Article 15 videos with a short film that I made for veterans, and that's my acting reel. And then I had a bunch of headshots, and nothing formal. Genuinely, just pictures that people took of me that are high quality. I just used those.
Like, I'm gonna use that one.
Yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, there's one of Range 15, blood all over my face, and I'm like, I'm like, oh, I don't know.
It sounds
So
good. Well, it fits perfectly with,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah. And so, they gave me the call that they would like to see me the next day, for an audition. Now, this is my first, like, real ever Hollywood audition, like, straight up, like, I have a chance to get on a big show.
Right.
So I'm nervous. I recorded all my lines. I played them throughout the night in my iPhone and making sure I can memorize everything. And I showed up and I did it, right? And I did my audition. I felt really confident. And
what's that audition like? Just out of curiosity.
So you show up, and I wasn't sure how it was going to work out either. But the casting director, she meets you, she shakes your hand, says, "Great to meet you. I love all the stuff you sent us. It was exciting. Really looking forward to seeing you read." And really, they want to see, can he freaking act?
Right.
Right. Like that's all they wanted. And so they gave me a character that was kind of a reluctant. I would almost describe it as a private in the military, just wanting to do right. And so I did the character, and there's a camera in the room. There's the casting director with the casting director assistant. Casting director assistant runs the camera. The casting director is starting to read lines, and they read lines for you. So we're going back and forth in a conversation, and it's just a white room, man. It's you in the room and the camera.
Do you have the script in front of you, or does this all have to be memorized?
You can.
Okay.
You can, but it looks better to go. They call it off script, memorized. So I memorized it, man, because I'm like, let's go. Let's if you're going to do it right, man, right?
For sure.
And so I shaved my head. I wore a tank top to look like a complete gangster, dude. I got some baggy pants on, some Chuck Taylors. I look like a dude from the Mayans already. So I knew I had the look.
Right.
Now I'm like, now I got to impress him with my acting, And so she starts reading her lines, and I'm impressed by the way she's reading her lines because I'm like, damn, she's good. And I'm like, so then I read my lines, and it gets to a point where I kind of black out and just go with the flow. And I'm hitting my line, she's hitting hers, and we're in conversation. And at that point, I genuinely was just like not even thinking, just reacting. Boom, 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 boom. And it's done. She gives me this big smile like, that was awesome. And she gives me a hug, and I was like, I don't know, maybe she says it to everyone.
Right.
Whatever, right?
Say that to all the guys.
Me and my wife, yeah. So me and my wife walk out of there, and we were like, well, now what, And so we just kind of, our vacation was done. So we actually headed to the airport and flew home, which at the time we were living in El Paso. We get an email by the time we land that the next day Kurt wants to see me for a second read. I'm like, oh shit, Kurt Sutter, man, like the dude, like the man.
Is he the producer? I don't know who this is. So is he the producer of the show?
He is the writer and producer of Sons of Anarchy, every single episode of that.
Okay, all right, yep.
He's the creator of this show. And so, I don't get starstruck. It wasn't that. It was more of the fact that I knew how much power he had, and I knew I needed to impress him. Mm-hmm. So I turned around, bought a ticket back to L.A. My dad drove me, and now they gave me 2 characters to read, so I'm reading for the same guy and a different guy. And I read for both characters, and a moment happened again where I kind of blacked out and just boom, existed in the room. And I knew that was the one. I knew it felt like that was so fluent and smooth to the point where it turned into like the joke really hit and everyone laughed in the room. And they were like, great job. And I was like, thanks. I shook his hand, just kind of like acting like I've been there before, bro. Like nice to meet you, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have a good day. I'm out. You know what I mean? And I walked out of there, and my dad's just pumped up about just the whole experience alone, and we're just talking about it to the car. And supposedly he actually watched me and my dad's interaction and thought it was a beautiful thing to see, the genuineness between me and my dad and the relationship we had. And I believe that's really what gave me the opportunity.
That's amazing. Yeah,
it's crazy.
I've always been curious with that process itself, like, because I've never been in acting, so I'm always curious, like, is it natural? Is it weird? Like, do you know you're doing it? Like, how much do you believe that you're the character in the moment? Like, these are all questions I've always been curious about.
Well, you have to, right? So I've done a ton of auditions since, and none of them have felt as smooth as that. Like, none of them have felt as genuine, It's tough, man. Like, you get the script, you get it like 3 days before, you read it, you try and believe it, and you present the best version of what you read to them and hoping that's what they wanted to see.
Right.
And they say genuinely, they say when you walk in, they already know if they want you or not because of how you look. It's just so much about the presence of your character that they're looking for. For me, I think I have a little bit of trouble because I don't have a Chicano accent, right? It's just really, I just have this just very, very normal, I think, speech. And I think a lot of guys see my picture and want me to audition. And when I show up there and not having this Chicano accent, this slang kind of talk, I think it hurts a lot of my chances of being this big Mexican, bad guy.
Yeah.
But it worked for the Mayans. I think we had enough of that in the Mayans, and my character was so different from everyone else that it made sense,
Yeah.
So
No, that's cool.
Yeah, it's tough, dude. It's uncomfortable. It really is,
Well, I think that's to go with everything else you've said. I think that level of discomfort is a good thing, whether it's acting or some physical, requirement that you need to meet or objective you're trying to accomplish. Like anytime you can make yourself uncomfortable, you're naturally going to get better.
Yeah. No, for sure.
What are your plans? I mean, as far as the acting career goes, is that something that you're going to pursue even deeper? I mean, I see you going in so many different directions. I'm curious if you feel like there's one path that you're like, I really want to explore this one.
The acting, I'm gonna let it exist as long as it exists, right? Like, I haven't nurtured it too much because if I do, that means California becomes home and I'm not home with my family.
Sure.
So then we'll have to make that decision one day if it really takes off. The real goal for me would be in the writing space, in creating shows, being able to tell the story. I would love to produce more. I would love to create TV shows that have, my voice to them, and those stories, hopefully they're inspiring and touching and really, that's really the goal I want to do, as well as, there's a lot of military stories out there that I think still need to be told that are not being told from our perspective, right? The actual veterans, the actual, and I think having my foot in the door in Hollywood, I think I owe it to our own community to try and help with that, right? To try and help tell those stories in a better light. There's a lot of guys creating stories for veterans and they believe they're doing a good thing, but in the end you have another broken veteran who loses everything for alcoholism. Right. And it's something that I don't necessarily agree with. I think that's the stereotype that is given to society, and I don't necessarily believe it. I think we need to start highlighting the successful, the badasses out there that are doing really good things, life after service. And so, right now, that's kind of the goal, is to be able to get my foot in the door and to help produce some really good content, really good film and television in the higher echelons, right? I want to get up there with the big dogs and compete. I want to compete with those dudes in the writing and producing. And if I can take my acting with me, that's what I would love to do.
Do you have any sort of creative leniency when it comes to your character on I'm drawing a blank right now.
On Mayans?
Mayans, thank you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're good.
You're 3 seasons into
Not
it, so
so
how much
much.
create? Yeah, not much on that.
Yeah, not much. They made my character military, which was nice, and they allowed me to wear a KIA bracelet, and so my character does wear one. And, I think to keep the character as genuine as possible, they try and keep it very similar to my actual storyline in life. Mm-hmm. And I think they've done that with a lot of our characters. But, I have really no say. I can't go in there and be like, hey, check it out. I want to have a mustache now. Yeah.
Right.
People forget we are just actors. And I say that because I believe the writing is really the powerful sentiment in every story. Mm-hmm. Right. And so us as the actors are just there to convey that message. And so who are we to say this is wrong? Like, no, man, I'm an actor. Whatever you put on that paper, I'm going to give it to you the best I can.
It's not your story, right?
Right, correct. We're advocates for the writers and to let them tell the most beautiful story they can come up with. And that's why they're in that position they are. And that's who we are. We're here to just be the muse for them. And with all respect, to try and give those words more life. And I love that challenge of it. And I also love that position, right? I'm not the leader in the room. I'm the guy that sits back and takes the orders. And essentially is what I am. I'm just another soldier to help complete this mission. And I love that. I really do love that aspect of it.
That's an interesting perspective because it's one you don't hear a lot about. Because everybody, especially on podcasting and the podcast circles and self-help and all that, everybody's like, you got to be the leader. You got to be the one giving orders. You got to be in charge. So it's really interesting to hear you say, somebody who probably prides himself on being able to lead effectively and influence people to do things, to say, you know what, I can be a soldier. Like, I can take the orders. I can play to the best of my ability. And I can appreciate that too.
Yeah, you know, I think in good leadership, you also have to know when to lead, when to follow. You know what I mean? When to lead and when to follow. And that's it. Like, look, man, I'm new at this. Like, let me lead, let me follow for a minute until I understand how to lead in this world. Mm-hmm. You want to go to combat? I got you. You want to do acting? You want to do, you know, like, let me sit back and learn. Who am I? Like, in the military, we go from rank, right? We grow. Until I'm ready to get to that position of leadership, why would I ever step in there and try and think I can do that? You know, I respect the art of acting and entertainment. And if I respect it, you know, I think I owe its due diligence in learning it. And that's where I'm at. I'm in the learning phases of allowing myself to understand acting so profound that I feel like I can step outside of that and now direct. And I've tried to direct. It's not easy, you know, and you know, I just want to do right by my career and doing it, you know, and being good at all around, you know.
Well, I think if you want to get into directing and writing and producing in these other aspects, I think it'll serve you well to know the full gambit, at least to some degree, right? Like, to come from different backgrounds, so you know, okay, well, here's how an actor would feel about this, and how can I write this in a way or produce or direct this in a way that facilitates the best from the actor I'm going to be working with, because you know that side of things.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that's important, you know, understanding this position now, and then eventually I'll start understanding the others.
Yeah. When it comes to with the veteran community and starting to tell those stories a little bit different than they have in the past, is that something that you feel like this is a project that you will head up? Is it better to work with existing organizations and help them maybe do a better job of painting these stories? Like, how do you see that working out?
You know, currently right now I'm producing a documentary called The Gift, and that is almost everyone is a veteran, and it's kind of cool. And I think when you're going to tell these heartfelt, real stories, I think it has to come from a place of experience, and it has to resonate. I think, you know what I mean? And a lot of people who haven't experienced the military and won't have as much of a connection right now in developing it. I think we can make a better film by being fully involved and having us guys in it. I mean, got Clinton Romaget is going to work on set with us and help us tell the story of Jason Dunham, right? Which is a beautiful story of a Medal of Honor recipient, you know, who passed in his efforts of being just doing his job, and just a beautiful story. And the goal for this is to really hopefully catapult me and my buddies into doing more stories for the veteran community, to hopefully make this in a way where people can appreciate not just the sad parts, but also the people that exist after, right? The life after trauma, and allowing us to tell those stories. And it might be hard for some people to hear the truth of the struggle that guys go through after seeing one of their friends, you know, get killed in combat. But I think that's also the beautiful side of the story, that there is success after, there is appreciation. You know, I think gratitude is what most of these guys just spew out of them for the fact that they still have the opportunity of life. And so I would love to be able to tell the story and hopefully kind of put my foot in the door where I'm doing this for a long, long time. You know what I mean? And starting to find what other military story I want to tell next. That one. I think that one deserves it. And then that one. And, you know, when it comes to really doing it, it becomes funding is the biggest hurdle that you have. Yeah, and once a network believes in me, we'll have the funding. You know what I mean? And it's up to me to show them I can do it. You know, and so that's what we're working on.
Got a lot of irons in the fire, man. What else? What other avenues are you like, okay, here's something I've never done before, but this is like kind of intriguing to me?
You know, I'm planning a one-man show. And that's just me on stage doing my thing, right? I have, you know, that one's going to be focusing a lot on my life. And I'm just like John Leguizamo is really what inspired me to do that. And I think it's in the growth of an actor and creator and writer. I think this is what my next step should be, to create this one man and just challenge it, right? Just see what I can do with it. And hopefully people can walk out inspired, right? Music, I'm really working on music this year. I will come out with some music. And that is the same aspect of just hopefully people just enjoy it. Writing, I have several more books, several small books I'm trying to do. These are all self-published. I don't care if I sell 1 or 100. It's just I need to get it off my chest and out there to the world and let it exist. I am no longer in the space where I'm chasing New York Times bestsellers, or I'm chasing more followers, or I'm chasing anything. I don't do any of it anymore for money. I do it because I enjoy it. And hey, there's obviously a price tag on it because you're going to pay for I want to give you my knowledge, and I expect that someone would want to purchase it. Sure, yeah. But I'm not chasing anything anymore. I'm not writing books to be this multi-level sold. If it happens, cool. If it doesn't, I don't care. When I wrote Light the Fuse, it's a transition book. It's really about my life and transitioning. It was meant just to be for anyone transitioning can read it and be like, dang, this dude is so it's so similar to their stories, right? Because we all go through the same stuff. No doubt. But I didn't write it to be like this, and it's not this book that I maybe sold under 10,000 copies, whatever the case. But I get messages about that book so often. It's like, that's all it was for, man. You know what I mean? It wasn't for any other reason. I didn't write it for the notoriety behind it. I wrote it to be just another book for someone to hopefully, get inspired and entertained and motivated by, and that's what I want to continue to do. I don't want to chase numbers. I just want to put out this content that I think deserves to be let go into the world and just let it exist, man.
Yeah. It's such a powerful perspective to come from. Because I've been there where, you get wrapped up in how many followers and how many downloads and how many this and how many books sold. And, you got to keep track of some of those metrics. But what changes that perspective is when you have a guy reach out to you, not just a guy, like a man, like a human being, reach out to you and say, I was throwing my life down the toilet. I was drunk. My wife left me. I was miserable. I was going nowhere. And I stumbled across this one podcast you did this one time, and you or your guest said this one thing, and it completely transformed my life. And I haven't drank for 6 months, and I've got a steady job or a promotion, or I'm losing weight. And you hear this human being tell you that, and you're like, oh yeah, this is why I do it. Not for the 10,000 new followers I want this week or whatever,
Yeah, no, exactly. In the end, it would be nice to have a bigger microphone to help inspire and motivate more people. Of course. Right? Like, I would love to have more opportunity to influence more in the right way. But if I start to chase that, my message becomes diluted, right? And I don't want that. It is what it is. Whoever listens is there. And if I start to try and chase, you're starting to get a side of me that's not genuine. And that's what that's every day I tell myself, like, dude, just keep being you. And, people like it, cool. If they don't, it is what it is. You're putting out shit that you want to put. In the end, if all it is a social media platform that my kids can go back and watch and learn from, that my kids can go back and read my books and learn from, that my kids can go back and show their grandkids and learn, or their kids and learn from, then I've just put a lot of stuff out there for my own family to learn from. Cool. You know what I mean? Because I didn't have enough time in the day to tell them everything. Well, they can go back and get it all from me now. Yeah. And if that's all it ever is, it's fucking worth it, dude. And so I'm going to continue to live my life in that aspect. And anyone else that stumbles upon me and reads something and gets inspired, fuck yes.
Cool. Right on. Well, let me ask you a couple of additional questions as we wind things up here. The first one, what does it mean to be a man?
Boom. It's tough, man. I think a man. I think there's leadership is the first thing that comes to mind. If you're a man, you're a leader. And I think us men are raising tomorrow's leaders. And knowing that and accepting that position, that's what we are, right? It's us and a woman who create a kid, but someone is a leader, and both can be leaders. But I think as a man, there's some specifics that we need to be in front of, right? Like, as a man, I teach my kids to fight, to protect themselves, to protect the weak. As a man, I teach my kids I teach my boys to protect women, to respect women, right? As a man, I teach my daughters how to change the oil in their car and understand and teach independency, right? In the end, I'm definitely trying to be the influence that is masculine in their lives, that is needed in both sides, right? I'm the example for my daughters, for the men that they want to marry in the future. Mm-hmm. I'm the example for my sons as the man they want to be for their spouses and for their kids. And so as a man, I just have to always try and remember that. And I am a big part of what my kids will be in the future. And so for me, a man is just being able to be that leader in the household.
Right on, man. That's a powerful perspective, and it's something that you seem to be living. So I admire and respect you for doing that, man. I appreciate that. How did the guys connect? Where do you want to send them to be able to sync up with you?
Too easy. If you guys are looking for my books, it's vinnyrock.com, VINNY. ROC.com. If you guys want to just check out all my Instagram, social media, everything's going to be other Vincent, Rocco, Vargas. You can find me. Twitter, I think it's The Real Rocco. But yeah, man, and anyone who's listening, dude, you guys want to reach out? I swear to you, I'll answer. Within a day, I'll answer. I answer every single message, and I'm not afraid of giving a call. There's veterans that call me like, bro, I need someone to wake me up. So give me your number, and I lay into them, bro.
Is that right?
Because
that's awesome.
Oh yeah, because if that's what they want, man, I'll give them tough love, dude. If you can take it, I'll give it to you. I'll give you the honest perspective of life. It's cool. I'm there to be dad for anyone, bro. I'm there to be the leader for anyone. It's just if that's what they want from me, then I'll be that for them. You know what I mean?
All right, that's powerful. But, I love it.
Yeah, man. Thank you, brother. You guys hit me up anytime you need. Thank you so much for having me on, bro. I respect you, and it's so cool to finally be able to connect with you on your podcast. And hopefully we live in the same state, right? And you're still in Utah, correct?
No, I moved. I moved like 7 months ago. I'm in Maine. I'm on the other side of the country.
Oh, my goodness. So that's why it's even been harder.
Yeah,
either way, sure. We'll connect sometime, some way, somehow, all right?
We will. We'll make it happen. I appreciate you, man. Thanks for sharing. This has been a very powerful conversation. It's been a long time in the works. I know guys that are listening to this are getting a ton of value from it, and I appreciate your realness and who you are and your ability, even in your position where you have so much going on that you're able to reach out and connect with people on a real human level is powerful. So thanks for sharing that with us, man.
For sure, brother. You have a good day, man.
You too.